live.
Yeah, it says this being is live streamed.
Yep, we just got the notification, so that's working.
Yep, and the little
Okay,
YouTube icons there. So we got it.
awesome, awesome, guys. Wish I could be there, but we've got accidents and snow and ice and everything in between. So,
Be careful. Please travel
yeah,
safe.
thank you and take care. Do you need me to make you full host? Well, you will be the second night. Yeah.
As I say, you made me
All right.
co-host, so I think we should be solid.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, take care. And you got my video too, correct?
Yes. Yep, we're set.
Okay. Okay. Awesome, guys. Well
Thank
done.
you,
See
sir.
you guys.
Bye.
Okay. Good night. Take care.
All right. Hey, Patty, I think we've got about a minute or so. Let me just double check to make sure who I need to let in here. Just a minute.
Not anybody else.
Nobody else?
No.
Not yet. Okay. All right. Okay, Patty, I don't know that there's anybody else waiting to be let in right now.
Okay.
Oh,
Hey,
I
there's
usually
Reza.
wait until Brent shows up, but it is the whole deer hunting season.
okay, well, Reza is here.
He's here to take notes. Welcome, Reza. Oh, that's
Brent.
his note taker. That's not Reza. That's his note taker. I don't know
No.
that Blair allows that, to be honest.
I will
But there's Brent.
He doesn't.
I will take care of that. Give me just a minute. All right, so Brent's with us.
Yeah.
Jacqueline.
I expect Shannon will be along and Jane will be watching on YouTube. So,
All right.
okay. Brent, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, thanks. It'll just be audio for me today.
Oh, just
So I'm
audio.
actually up north, so
I
it will
wondered
change.
about that. Did you get your
Yeah.
deer?
No, it has been like I don't know, and nobody's seen any. Like I have pictures of them, but they're just in the middle of the night. So
Um,
it's been pretty quiet this week. Not a
Okay.
lot of people hunting either, so
Really? That
not sure what's
surprises
going on.
me.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I'm glad you have the chance. Are you up in the UP?
yes. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, Becky, if you could put the slide up
Yep. Let me
for
just
the announcements.
there we go.
Hopefully we can see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that
Okay.
works well. Thank you. All right, we're going to get started with just a few announcements. You can see My Model Method Coach training is in Arizona, January 5th through the 8th and 13th through the 16th. That training will be in person. It's the first in-person training that Blair has done since before COVID. So all the other trainings he's done since that time have been via Zoom. So this is a really special opportunity to be face-to-face, not just with Blair, but with the other people participating, which is a unique provides a very unique instructional atmosphere. So then we also have the Mind Model Mastery podcast, Mind Model Mastery Secrets podcast, dropping Monday and Thursday. Thursday is a follow-up of what we talk about here, and Monday is its own topic. And then the Mind Model Mastery Minutes podcast. Also, Blair has a free profiling session, and you can see the contact information there. Blair is offering this as complimentary, but it's normally a paid service, and it gives you insight into yourself that you might not have otherwise, into your language. It's a very unique experience, and to have access to this at no charge is tremendous value for what you'll be getting if you choose to follow up on this. So with that, I think that we will move on to the introduction. So Welcome to the 371st episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience, where we discuss mind models. Your host for this evening, Tim and Becky Graff, and my name is Patty. We are all certified mind model method coaches. Blair is on the road. It's normally his program, but he is on the road, so we are taking over for tonight. Mind models are a collection of extensively tested thought frameworks, skills, and behaviors that enable people to transform their lives intentionally. The BDE, Blair Dunkley Experience, is Blair's free gift to you, and it's an opportunity to learn, experience, and practice mind models in a safe, real-world environment. Personally, mind models helped me overcome more than a decade of depression. They have positively impacted every area of my life, including my relationship with myself. So we look forward to learning with you tonight and welcome you to the BDE. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Tim and Becky. Maybe you could give them the topic for tonight. We haven't given them the topic yet.
Yes. So tonight we're going to be talking about feelings and communication and their impact. Oh, 2 seconds on communication. I'm not used to being the one in charge of letting other people in the room. So give me a second to do that.
Yeah.
All right. Let Shannon in. Welcome, Shannon. So we're just getting kicked off with the topic for tonight. So as Patty mentioned, this is episode 371. We're going to be talking about describing feelings, behaviors, and their impact on communication. And to kick it off, Blair actually put together a little video that I'm going to share my screen and we're going to watch together. It's going to give us an overview and kind of some insight on how we may be playing with each other tonight, setting up the information. So I will go ahead and do that now. All right, you guys should be seeing a black screen.
Mm-hmm.
See this?
Got it. Mm-hmm.
We're going to break down why our best in. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are going to tackle a big one, effective communication. We're going to break down why our best intentions so often seem to get lost in translation and, more importantly, give you a practical cheat sheet to actually fix it. You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. On the inside, you feel one way, clear, maybe even compassionate. But then the words you say or the things you do create a totally different result on the outside. It's that incredibly frustrating gap between what we mean and what we do. So, why does that happen? Why is it so difficult? Well, a lot of the time, that disconnect comes from a pretty fundamental confusion between two very different ways that we process our own emotions. And this really gets to the heart of the problem. See, on one side, you've got thinking your feelings. That's when we use our logical brain to filter and rationalize what's going on inside. It often gives us the correct or the socially acceptable answer, but it's not always the true one. On the other side, there's feeling your feelings, and this is totally different. It's about receiving that pure, unfiltered information from your body without judging it. That's the real starting point for genuine communication. Okay, so how do we bridge that gap, between our internal world of feelings and our external world of actions? Well, the answer is in a really powerful and honestly super practical set of tools that we're going to dive into right now. The solution is a set of tools we call mind models. Now, don't think of these as some complex, abstract psychological theories. They're not. They're proven, repeatable frameworks for more effective living. They are actual skills you can learn to intentionally change your outcomes. And that's exactly what they are. I love this idea. It's a mental cheat sheet for the really complex game of human communication. Mind models just cut right through all that internal noise and give you a direct path to more effective behavior. And get this isn't just some nice idea. These skills have been tested, and they're proven to be 80% effective when you apply them consistently. I mean, that is a huge advantage, especially when you compare it to just relying on mindset, which studies have shown is only about 1% effective for creating real change. So, where does this amazing cheat sheet even begin? Well, it all starts with one really foundational skill, learning how to translate your internal sensory feelings into clear external words. And this starts with two core mind models. First, you just name and label what you're actually experiencing inside. Second, you describe those feelings accurately. So for example, instead of just saying I'm stressed, you might describe it as I feel a tightness in my chest and my thoughts are racing. See that? That simple shift from a judgment to a description, that's the starting point for everything. As the creator of mind models, Blair Dunkley says, we behave to the meanings of words. And this is so, so crucial. The specific words you choose to define what's happening inside you will directly shape your external behavior. If you get the words right, the right behavior has a much better chance of following. And this right here, this is a brilliantly simple yet profound process for actually doing that. By closing your eyes, scanning your body, naming what you find, and then physically acknowledging and accepting it, you start to regulate your emotional state instead of just being controlled by it. You're turning that chaotic feeling into useful information. Okay, so now we have this internal awareness. Great. But how does that actually translate into action? This next part is all about connecting what you feel to what you do. So here's the critical distinction you have to make. The difference between your internal state, that feeling you just named and accepted, and your external behavior, which is what you're about to do. One exists only in your world. The other is observable by everyone and creates results in the real world. And this is the payoff. This is the whole point. Once you have that clarity on your internal feeling, you interrupt that automatic reactive pattern. You suddenly gain the power of choice over your external actions. You can now decide what behavior is going to be the most effective to get the result you actually want. And finally, you apply that choice using the self-other situation model. Think of this as a final little check to make sure your behavior is actually going to be effective. It forces you to pause and consider not just what you want, that's the self, but also the perspective of the other person and the specific context of the situation you're in. It's about finding what works best for everyone involved. Now look, this isn't just theory. You can't just think about this and magically get better at it. It's a practical skill, and just like any other skill, it takes practice. And maybe the most important thing to take away from all this is that effective communication is a learnable skill. It is not some talent you're either born with or you're not. And the goal is always progress, not perfection. The really good news is there's a community where you can practice these skills in a safe, real-world environment. You can join the Blair Dunkley Experience live every week on YouTube. It's on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Or, even better, you can participate directly by signing up for the free Zoom link. Just go to blairdunkley.com/info. And for a much deeper dive, Blair's books, Ultimate Mind Hacking and Phobia Freedom Formula, are an incredible guide to mastering these tools. You can find both of them on Amazon. So I want to leave you with a question to make this real for you. Think about your life right now, your work, your relationships. What is the one conversation, that one interaction that you could fundamentally change this week just by starting with accurately describing your feelings? That's the power of this cheat sheet.
All right. So, we're just going to close this down so that it doesn't accidentally play again. All right, you guys. So tonight we're going to be talking about describing feelings and the impact on communication. And Jacqueline, your comment in the chat, I think, is very timely as it relates to how we interface with our feelings and what we choose to do with them. So I appreciate that. Would you like to expound further on that, Jacqueline?
Surely. I wasn't really wanting to do anything this evening because I'm in the mood to like do little bits and pieces like on my honeydew this list, honeydew that. I've only got myself, and all of a sudden my honey's like gone. I think they want sex tonight or something because I'm starting to do everything around the house. That was probably not a very funny joke. Anyway, oops. Oh, anyway, yes, expand on that. The thing that I might suggest is using like mind model friendly words, unless the double Y's together and stuff like that are meant to evoke some sort of feeling or something like that. I'm not behind the mental.
So to
Yeah.
that point, okay, great observation. We're meeting people in their model of the world with that video so they can start to understand the pathway and how the words that we use can elicit different things. So you mentioned like you have a different perspective in the training that you've been through, your experience, your wealth of practice with the mind models and the effective language versus ineffective. So for you, your experience might have been something different than that of somebody who has not yet experienced the mind models.
Of
So,
course, I could see that in 5 minutes and have a totally different take on it. You know what I mean? And I may not have even had any conversation with anybody. I may have just turned around, walked away, gone to the bathroom or something, come back, and then all of a sudden and see it again and have a completely different concept or perception of it.
so
Yeah,
really what we really wanted to start thinking about is exactly like the duality, to your point, Jacqueline. You know, the way that we interact in our world is very much driven by what's going on for us in the moment, or our history, things that we've habituated, things like that. But really where we want to focus tonight is describing feelings and the impact on communication. So I want to pose the question to the group, where do we learn communication to start with? Where do we learn communication?
well, everywhere, depending on how observant you are. Sorry, that was
Where?
silly. You know, that was, and I don't know why I'm trying to be funny. I think I should probably stick to my original idea and just observe tonight. I'm tired and I'm not really focused, but I'm gonna just love hearing. And just because I pop on, please don't take it as like I want to chat. I just sometimes pop on just to let you know, like I'm here. And anyway, we can talk about how ineffective or effective that is another time. I
Well, I
will.
appreciate it, Jacqueline. Is it okay that if you pop on, I ask you if you'd like to contribute, or would you rather me not do so?
I'll send you a message because
Okay.
probably not, unless
Okay.
something kind of really I need to say.
Okay. Sounds great.
Right,
Thank
lovely
you.
guys. I'm watching.
Thank you. All right. So Jacqueline posed the idea that we learn communication everywhere. That could definitely be accurate. Where does it originate from though? So if you think about our history, where we come from, where do we typically learn it? Leslie, what do you think?
I think we learn it at a very young age. We're as young children or as babies and young children. I mean, we get the interaction with our mums and our dads looking after us, siblings. And it's amazing. It's amazing to see having had, we're blessed with 8 grandkids, and we've held each one of them on the day that they were born. And, just to see them grow and how their communication changes. We've got 2 that are 18 right now, and we can have a much different conversation with them than our youngest grandchild, who is 7. And the rest are all staggered in between.
Mhm.
It's amazing how um, different kids are talking at different levels. And it's remarkable. It really is remarkable.
So, sorry, did you have something additional you wanted to add?
I'm still pondering about that to answer further. How, like, yeah, when we get out into the world more and start working, I mean, we learn we learn our trade, we learn the language of our trade, and that's our ability to communicate is not always effective and efficient, but during our high school or college or whatever we're doing, we're not really taught to communicate.
Just kind of happens.
It just sort of happens. Going through architecture, um, we communicated through presentations. We had to create these drawings and these images and we had to explain what it was that we were doing. And I effectively communicated so much that I got kicked out of architecture. But that's the long story. But it's learning to. I've learned more in the last 2 years about communicating by participating with this evening, and learning the mind models. It took a few months to get used to the language, but once it started working, it has been significantly helpful. The 3 E's, the naming and labeling, which we talked as being very important in this, has taken a while to learn and to figure out in working. Self-other situation has been easier to remember and to use. But then I don't know what the heck happened today, but I forgot everything, and I made some mistakes today in trading, and said, "Oh, so what? Let's do it again." And it was not good economically today. But looking at it afterwards, what I was able to do was to control my feelings about it, which is interesting. I mean, yeah, today was just when I went stupid. But whereas before I used to beat myself up about that, go into a state of depression, that did not happen. So,
Well, I love that you bring that up, Leslie. You've brought up some amazing talking points, and some of them that I actually want to circle back to here, and I'll actually do that here in just a second. But I wanted to check in with Shannon real quick. Shannon, you came off mute, and I just wanted to. Did you have something you wanted to add?
I did. The first thing that when you asked where do we learn communication, the first thing that popped into my head was role modeling. And, you know, that does start with our most intimate relationships as a small child, but the influences expand. And, you know, we're taught to communicate not just from family, but maybe a video or something we see on TV or our teachers at school, whether they're effective or ineffective behaviors. Like I learned to teach dance from the people who taught me dance. And while there were many highly effective techniques, there were some that when I got to the point of becoming a dance teacher, I had to evaluate myself. And that's where the power of choice popped in. So it starts with role modeling. And then I feel like you come to a place where, like, do I want to continue this or do I want to choose something else for myself? And that, you know, self-other situation, the video that we started with, you know, we do get some initial programming from what we see and what we experience. And then I think that coming, you know, growing, you know, and learning to evaluate, you can decide if that works for you. If it's working for you, you know, lots of times we don't really notice a communication style or even think about that. It's when it breaks down that we notice it, and that it when it's not working, and then we're like, what just happened here? And you know, so those are some of my thoughts on your original question that I wanted to share, because it feeds into, you know, noticing what are the influences, even music, even things, podcasts, whatever we're listening to, our brain is hearing on, and you know, whether we're attempting to absorb it or not, it gets in there, and then starting to realize, oh, I've been trending like this. Is that a trend that I want to let myself go to? Or maybe I kind of edit some of those songs out of my life and I focus more on these songs, or whatever it is. But the information that comes into our brains, you know, from the people and the stimulus that we take in, is what teaches us. And we can choose whether it's effective or ineffective or where we want to be.
Everybody's frozen.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so are we all
There we go.
we're all back?
We're all back.
Okay, that was strange.
It took me a moment because I was talking and I was like, oh wow, Becky's really thinking about what I said. And then I was like, she's not moving.
No, something happened with our internet, and unfortunately, it says we can't do the cloud recording. So what I'm gonna do, it looks like we're still live on YouTube. I will pop over there and just double check, but I'm gonna record this to my computer, and then I'll just shoot that to Blair later. Anywho,
Okay.
don't know what happened, but
Yeah, that
we're gonna
was
take off. So Shannon, what I heard last from you was that we learn from all these different things and we can evaluate whether it's working for us or not, and then make choices. To summarize, did I miss
Yes.
anything?
No,
Okay.
I just wanted to highlight it's like it's not always intentional. Sometimes it's the unconscious sources that can train us too.
Yeah.
And
Another source for training us is the response that we get when we attempt
Ah.
communication.
yeah,
And
that's a big one.
we get a variety of responses, whether they're from teachers or parents or siblings or whatever, and that has a major impact. And we learn from the way people respond to us. We learn communication.
Mhm. And we also, with that communication, we learn like, communication styles. Definitely, Patty. I can appreciate what you're saying as far as like what we get when we communicate. And I want to cycle kind of back to where Leslie was talking, like, in architecture school, he learned how to communicate via presentations and things like that. And there is the side of this that we haven't really touched on is the emotional impact of the communication. So there's the duality that we're talking about. So,
And one of the interesting things, and I love that Leslie brought it up. One of the interesting things about human beings is we are emotional. Everything we do is emotionally driven. We are emotional creatures. What separates us from everything else, and the fact that we can rationalize and make sense of things. But the interesting thing is we learn through mimicry. We learn through compare and contrast when we're young, but we're not always are we taught how to name and label what we're feeling, how to work with what we're feeling, and how to communicate that. And so we watch others do it, whether it's effective or ineffective, and but we don't really evaluate is it effective or ineffective. We just see and we mimic, and it either works for us or it doesn't work for us, and then we pivot off that. Or as Leslie mentioned today, we have a day where things are off and they may not be going in an effective manner, and it tends to pivot from there, and take us in a whole different direction. And while we're doing these things, if we're around others, if we're in a certain situation, we're influencing and affecting those as well. And it's interesting, Jacqueline brought this up earlier, but, you know, we are individual as well. And the way one person experiences a situation or something that's said from another is not necessarily the same as like Becky might experience it or feel and so it's interesting how one person and their where they are and how their day's going, whether effective or ineffective, impacts everyone else around them. And it's like that ripple effect.
Mhm.
And we're not really taught these, back to what I was originally saying, we're not really taught these skills of, am I being effective? Am I being ineffective? Is this working for the situation? Is it working for others? We're not taught to evaluate any of these things. And so we just do, and then we react based on whatever happens. And we kind of go through life almost with the blinders on.
We don't know what we don't know.
Right.
Okay.
And I loved what Leslie mentioned, you know, that he's learned more from being on here and learning the mind models in the last couple years than, you know, before. And it's actually evaluation. It's asking yourself those questions. It's connecting and naming and labeling and doing those kinds of things that really helps us determine whether we are effective or ineffective. Jacqueline, you have your hand up. Did you have something?
Yeah, I just jotted down a note. So it's not quite where we are right now, but I would like to just maybe suggest something. I'm
Sure.
curious about how our lack of connection when we all froze, as Leslie pointed out, or how did that affect you, and what did you choose to feel? Because if we compare and contrast like we do when we're learning, like what might we have done in the past? Would we be like, oh shit, or would we like, you know, oh hey, well, got to see this, or so maybe I should start contacting people via messenger, or you know, like what happened? Because I think that's kind of what we're talking about. It's not communication, it was our lack of communication, which I think kind of,
Mm-hmm.
for
I
me
think
anyway, fits together.
agreed. Because when we're talking about communication, as Tim was saying, and this will, I'll cycle back, you know, I can directly answer your question as far as like when we all froze, what happened? There was a definite emotional shift over here. We're like, oh
Yes,
man, we're
me
joking.
too.
What
Yeah,
happens if Blair gives us all the controls and all of a sudden our internet goes wonky? And guess what, guys? It happened. So you learn to pivot and accept there was that flush of oh crap
yeah,
and panic, initial panic, like sense of like urgency and like heart, like oh no, oh no, oh no, panicky. And then it was like, okay, what can I control? I can control certain things. But if my internet is down, there's only certain things that I can do. So check those things, see if it comes up, give it X amount of time. And then to your point, I was 2 seconds away from texting you, Patty. Like, start in the chat to see if they can still have connection there. And then I'll send Patty a text via like personal. We'll figure out a way to get it back up and running. But to your point, communication is also, if you remember that over 90% of communication is non-word. So facial expressions, if you're in a conversation with somebody and then like they're giving you this blank something or other, you're likely receiving something through your own filters. Or in the case of what happened with Zoom, I bet if we all dropped in the chat, what did you experience when our connection went weird? Shannon's like, man, Becky's deep in thought. Patty's probably, I'm assuming, there's a little bit like, oh no, right? Because when you're in charge of facilitating something, there's just a different slant to that. But everything that happened, sorry, did you have something else to add, Jacqueline?
oh, I was just saying, when you're in charge of something, it ups the ante. Like
It,
your radar, your perspective becomes way different, rather than just la 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 la, all of a
well,
sudden you're okay, who's
and
thinking
to
what?
bring it back into the emotional connection, okay?
Yeah,
Because again, we're communicating, we're having an experience on the BDE, we're asking questions, we're getting input from other people, but every single person on this call is feeling something slightly different. So I want to like change this back into another question. Thank you for bringing that up, Jacqueline, because again, I think that the whole lack of communication, like interruption of coming back with a different filter, a different context because of the narrative that may be going on or our own situation does play into our ability and typically our responses to things. And so one of the questions that we wanted to kind of highlight is first off, drop it in the chat. I know I don't usually do this, but I'm curious from everybody, just, you know, blind, not saying it out loud. On a scale of 1 to 10, what do you believe about communication? 1 being it's super, super hard, 10, it's super easy. Just curious. Drop it in the chat or say it out loud. Where do you believe your communication or believe about communication? Is it super hard or is it really easy?
Well, can you have like a depends on if I'm in a good mood or a bad mood?
I mean,
Or
if you want to put that level on it, but let's just take
I
the
can play with
the
that.
general brush.
Or I have no
Christy,
patience
which
today.
one was one?
I don't know.
1 was extremely hard. So 1
Okay.
is, man, this is like to communicate, to get my feelings, my opinions, my ideas, like just in general. We're going to take a generalization of our ability for communication. What is our belief about it? 1 being it's really hard, 10 being super easy.
And then we have the other part, self or others.
We're
Like communication with myself is what I have to focus on most because that's where I'm going to first screw up, right? I mean,
so like Jacqueline, do you mean internal communication or
sorry, say that again. I'm sorry, I'm having problems with my speakers. Say that again, sorry.
when you're saying communication with yourself, are you meaning like internal communication, like you're talking to yourself, like your model of the world kind of stuff, or your ability to communicate with other people from
Yeah,
that?
and I may not even think I'm talking to myself, but I'm thinking.
Okay.
And I may be thinking in a why or or a what how, or then then I get back to my loved one, breathe, where am I, and just like stop and reflect. Anyway, I'm getting a little off track, but that question is so deep. I guess okay, yeah, I'll have to think on that.
Okay, fair enough. So think on it, and when you've come to determination, maybe a scale of 1 to 10 for your internal stuff versus yourself with other people, go ahead and just drop it in the chat. Because this is an interesting question, and I asked it intentionally because to Jacqueline's point, there are multiple facets of communication. Like for me, my communication in my own self, in my own head, I've got it dialed in pretty good. I whoop my own butt. I talk myself through things. Okay. I'm pretty much in charge of my own ship because I'm a very process thinker. However, you put me in a situation where I'm communicating with others, I'm very cognizant about how I'm presenting or how I am choosing to engage appropriate to time and place. Okay. And a lot of times, pulling it back into emotions, a lot of the times I feel resistance in communicating because of the emotional load I'm feeling. It's almost as if it's a tether and is limiting in some respects in how I have historically been able to communicate. Example would be I was in a chorus class. Okay, you had to pick your song, you had to practice it, and then you go up and you do it in front of the entire group. I'm a pretty fluid talker, right? People say that they like my questions and words come quickly to me, but man, the emotional side. Let's talk about the emotional side. It was so challenging for me to get up and to do that in front of my peers and everything else to communicate in that manner. And the feedback that I got, I'm like, okay, hit my notes, hit my pitches pretty good. Those things work pretty well. But then there was a comment from a friend like, you know that mostly only guys sing that song, right? And immediately there was this attachment of embarrassment to my public communication in that space. So when we talk about communication being, how do we perceive our communication on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being challenging, 1 being, easy, to Jacqueline's point, it is nuanced. It's not necessarily exactly the same in all spaces, but I would love for us to consider how our emotions specifically are impacting our ability to communicate. Because Shannon brought it up, Leslie brought it up, Jacqueline brought it up. We learn communication styles all around us. We model, we mimic it when we're little. Okay, so those people in those intimate relationships, as we grow and we learn and we're in different places, me in high school, okay, any schooling scenario, we're around other human beings. Laughing ones, crying ones, screaming ones, cussing ones, sad ones. Okay. Like there's a lot of emotional communication happening that goes far beyond the verbal dialogue. So where do we learn how to communicate that part? Where do we
That
learn
last
to,
little part, Becky, please? The last
Which-
question.
Where do we learn that part is what I said. So more
What part?
specifically,
What do you mean by that part?
more
I'm sorry.
specifically, how do we learn to communicate or understand our own emotions? Where do we learn to understand our own emotions?
Right here.
Right here, the
Right
BB
here.
at 7 p.m. Mountain. I love it.
And they transferred into the outside world and the inside world, meaning inside or internal and external.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this is something that I think bears an opportunity to just reflect a little bit. Like in your own experience, where or when did you start to understand your own emotions? I will fully admit that my introduction to Blair Dunkley and the mind models, when I started learning them, was probably the first time that I had scope and understanding of emotions. I understood I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry, but I had no clue that I had any power, had no choice. Like, I didn't understand any of that because I didn't understand what was actually going on under the hood. So curious, Patty.
Yeah, I think that there's this general sense that emotions just happen to you, you know, that they just happen. And sometimes you can put names and labels to the feelings, but
You have those
that
names and labels, Patty.
I'm sorry, Jacqueline.
If you have those names and labels,
If you have them, exactly.
identify.
But as you know, part of when we went through coach training, we had this exercise of listing 200 feeling words positive and 200 feeling words negative. And I was amazed at how many words there were for all the things. And I think Colin is up to like 1,500 words, feeling words in his, his little dictionary. Yeah, Jackie.
I would just like to give a warning to people. Like, this might sound like a good idea, just to like run in a group and ask them about their positive and negative feelings, or the bad or the good. Seriously, guys, don't do this without proper guidance. There's guidance that is needed for that type of exercise. It's not just something willy-nilly that you do. I don't know if any of you agree. I just wanted to put that out there because, you get ideas on the internet and stuff like that. I mean, if you're going to personally do it for yourself and kind of find a few things and all of that type of stuff, always remember to come back to the positive words.
But
Don't leave yourself in the negative space.
To Jacqueline's point, her caution there is part of the way we learn to understand our own emotions is by observing the reaction they get from other people. And that may or may not be truly accurate for what you're feeling. But other people, I remember being in a conference and I went up to one of the speakers to talk to him afterwards. And he just looked at me and said, "Wow, you're really angry." But I wasn't. I wasn't angry. I don't know where he got that. I don't have any clue. But I felt absolutely frozen and paralyzed by what he said because it came from so out in left field and it was very abrupt. He just looked at me and said, "Wow, you're really angry," and walked away. And I didn't know what to do with that. It's really easy for me to get into reliving how I felt when that happened. But I looked at that and I thought, no, this is again before these skills, before my models. But I thought, who are you to tell me what I'm feeling?
Mhm.
Who are you? You don't know me. You don't know me from anything. And, there's so much that you don't know. To just make that blanket statement, which was really very judgmental. And we have to be careful with names and labels. Which ones do we take on for ourselves? And what do we agree with and what do we not agree with? If you're looking through the internet for names and labels for emotions, positive and negative, it's really important that we observe how many there are, but we're evaluative. To Tim's point, we're evaluative as to what we adopt. What do we choose to call our own stuff? And are those accurate names and labels? Are they names and labels that other people have given us for feelings that may or may not be accurate? We are not obligated to take on names and labels that other people give us for ourselves or for our feelings or for any of those things. We are not obligated. They are not purveyors of truth. They are only communicating their perceptions. And their perceptions can add to the general data that you have when you're evaluating your own self and you're evaluating what's going on. But I do think that we learn an awful lot, rightly, wrongly, positively, effectively, ineffectively, whatever you want to call it. It cuts both ways, that we learn from other people's responses to what we put out there.
Yeah. And I think, Patty, what you brought up is a great thing, is to test and ask. So if you perceive something in someone else, simply just ask them so
Right.
that you get a sense of, number one, is it true for them? And give them an opportunity to explore what that is for them. So when we talk about where our communication and stuff came from or comes from, typically, let's bring it back to like children, because for most of us, we didn't really go through and this is an assumption, clarify if you're out there on YouTube and you experience something differently or here on the call, please let me know. But as a child, I was not necessarily schooled in naming and labeling and describing my feelings and my emotions. The extent of it was happy, smiling face, crying, you're sad. It was like the very general assumptive emotions. And so one of the things that Tim and I did, because we started learning mind models when our girls were little, is we started to model for and with them these things that we were learning, because what we really started to understand and notice is that we are emotional creatures and emotions drive a large chunk of what we do and experience as human beings. Communication styles, our ability to navigate challenging things like navigation of life. And so one of the things that we started doing was checking in with them, right? When they were crying or they having a hard time, we would check in with them and ask them what they were feeling, where it was feeling, what did they notice. When we were watching things on movies and things and they saw somebody crying and you get the question, Mommy, is she sad? Okay, we could have a conversation and a dialogue. It was something that we were very open with because it's not something that is innately part of our life experience as human beings.
Well, and the other thing that we really worked on with our young girls was, we would ask them, what are you feeling right now? And if it was, I'm angry, I'm mad, okay, do you need a moment to be mad? Do you need a moment to let that anger out? And usually, once that question was asked, there was an awareness for them that, oh, well, no, I'm okay. It was a lot of what we got. I'm all right. And then almost instantly, the emotion shifted. It just took that little bit of a pattern interrupt. Or there were times where our youngest in particular, she was upset and she needed a minute to be upset. I remember one instance in particular, she lost it. She was kicking her feet. She was throwing her little temper tantrum. And I just asked her, Ellie, do you need a minute to be mad? Yes. Okay. I'm going to leave you.
Fine.
Let me know when you're done. And she did. She threw a full on fit. And then it was almost like somebody just like flipping on a light switch. All of a sudden she was kicking, screaming, and all of a sudden it was like, oh,
I'm done.
I'm done.
I come out now.
Was like, okay,
Okay.
and so it just having them connect with their feelings and have that moment to externalize and off gas if they needed it, just so that they had the understanding that it was important. It was important to understand what they were feeling and how to work with it.
Shannon?
In that,
I was curious. Oh,
just a
sorry. Go ahead.
second. That's okay. In that example, you asked them to tell you what they were feeling,
Mhm.
Mhm.
How
as
did you
opposed
help
to
them? find their vocabulary for that in order to
Okay.
answer that question?
Great question. So again, if we like reverse, okay, because we started this when our girls were little. And so we're talking like 18 months, 2, 3, young, okay, where communication starts. They'd been seeing mom and dad model more specific and more intentionally in our dialogue together. Okay. So where did the vocabulary come from? A lot of that came from mimicry, likely, but then also asking them, we saw TV. Mommy, is she sad? Mommy, is she mad? They started to start associating those things. But for them, there had been a time where, and I have this on video. I'm not, yeah, I'm not ashamed to say that I have this on video. Our youngest 2-year-old, Miss Ellie, okay, at the time, she was having what we called Fred in full effect moment, which means the physiologically we need to off gas emotions as human beings. Okay. Whether you're itty bitty, babies cry, that kind of thing, like it's required that the emotions get externalized in some form or fashion. It's not bad or wrong. It doesn't mean that there's anything broken with the human being. We're emotional people and we need to be able to have an external outlet for it. So with her, okay, she had her moment. We put her in a safe little space and let her just do her thing. I did record this and then I showed it to her. And I asked her what she was feeling and where she was feeling as she saw herself doing the thing. And it was not from a place of, "Oh my gosh, can you believe you did this? Look at your face, it's so red." None of that. It was simply observable. Like, do you remember how you felt? You felt upset. Like, where were you feeling those things? This is what it looked like. This is what people saw when you were doing this. And so starting to build a foundation of awareness and understanding that number one, emotions are not bad or wrong. They are appropriate to time and place, and you're gonna have to navigate those things. Okay. Patty shared a story earlier where she was at a conference, somebody said something to her, and it was like wholly 180 from what was actually going on because of their own model and their own filter from what they perceived they saw in Betty, in Patty's body language, sorry, that kind of stuff. And so really the question is like, how do you start to become aware and learn about your own self? It requires you, and Anpu is one of our mind models, to start becoming aware and noticing in those moments what's coming up for you. Like when
How
I get
much
in,
time went by between the video and when you talked to her?
24 hours or so.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't long. And it was also little sister was throwing a fit, big sister was with mom, watching it, wanting to go like interrupt and like coddle and take care of and all the things, which would have been great. But we were testing to see what would happen if Ellie just had a moment to have her moment. Nobody trying to fix anything, just let her have her moment. And then engage with that piece specifically. Yes, Jacqueline, confidence versus self-confidence, Patty. Okay. That growth piece. I assume that was to you. So,
Yes.
so when we think about this, we all come from our own historical environments. We have stuff that we have experienced that make up who we are today. And with mind models, we have an ability to start to become more aware and noticing how and where things are working or maybe not working for us so that we can grow into a more effective communicator with ourselves, maybe with other people. And this comes down to like, how do we actually interface with emotions? Do we think our emotions or do we actually feel our emotions? Leslie, you're looking very thoughtful. What's coming up for you, my friend?
A few things coming up. Yeah. Um, what one thing I guess this is where I can start is that you know you said, paraphrasing maybe, having a way to release your emotions. And I did write that down. And I also wrote, how do I do this? And where is my place to do this? And I don't have answers. I don't have answers. And that could be a very, very much a realization.
I think that's I love that you brought that up, Leslie. That is a big thing, especially for us guys. A lot of men, it's not tough, it's not macho, it's, all the things, and there's this whole stigmatism around showing your emotions, or it's somehow weak or something like that, and a lot of guys out there are raised that way, that it's somehow weak or not manly to cry or to externalize or to just be able to even describe and work with your feelings. But it actually, if you can describe what you're feeling, if you can work with those emotions, if you have a place and you have the understanding, as we've learned here with mind models, that the internal does come out externally eventually, and usually for a lot of guys it's explosive. It finally gets to a point where we've bottled it and we've kept it internal so long that something triggers and we end up exploding and going a little off the hinges, so to speak. And it's usually quite ineffective. And so having that effective space to be able to off gas, to be able to share how you're feeling and work with those feelings, makes you a more effective human being. And I think for a lot of guys in particular, I mean, and I say guys because ladies usually have an easier time connecting with their emotions. They usually have an easier time talking with their girlfriends or with somebody, or at least have an external outlet for,
Emoting.
or emoting their emotions, where guys, we typically don't. We're just bottle it, we keep it inside, and we don't have an effective process for externalizing. So to your point, Leslie, I think it's a great question for the guys out there to ask themselves, where is an effective place to be able to externalize, to be able to off gas my emotions if I need to? And am I naming and labeling? Am I in touch with what's going on internally? Because whether we like it or not, guys, it does come out eventually. And usually if we bottle it, it most of the time comes out ineffectively.
And this is where do you think your emotions or do you actually feel them?
Yeah.
Because it's I think we learn how to just kind of buffer that. I'm mad. It's the whole, you ask a girl if she's, are you okay, honey? Is everything fine? And you get the, I'm fine. There's not fine going on typically there, right? There's something else. There's something else. But that's the blame.
A knee-jerk reaction, a behavior that we in society have.
Yeah.
Cash says, how are you doing today? You say, fine. I
Yep.
always tell them exactly how I'm feeling. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not. Sometimes I'm really not feeling good, and I just say, it's not a good day. I'm having a really shitty day, and thank you for asking. And to see the changes on their face when they actually come into reality, click right in.
And so this really does, Jacqueline, you brought up a great thing. Like, how does your environment impact your communication? If you're having a crappy day and you're like in a space or with colleagues where you need to, quote, not be having a crappy day, or at least behave in which you're not having a crappy day, what do you do with that emotional load that needs to be acknowledged? Okay, so this comes back to naming and labeling and describing what it actually is for you. Because your name and label, you behave to the names and labels that you use as it relates to emotions. And our senses, our sensory input, it gets all sorts of stuff. Okay. And so we can start using names and labels to start putting some academia, some words, some externalization, order, if you will, to the sensations that we're experiencing bodily. We were talking about with, kids, and I think it's true with human beings as well, that if you're feeling emotionally charged about something, a physical behavior of some sort is helpful because it can act as a pattern up, or at least a sensory shift in that space to allow you some time and space to be able to then engage differently.
Did you have something, Jacqueline, that you wanted to share?
I'm just looking for it. I lost it. I'm sitting here.
Okay.
What the heck was that?
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
it had
So,
to do with emotions and feelings and all of that, and never mind.
well, if it comes back up, go ahead and share, because again, today's conversation is describing feelings and our behaviors and how that impacts communication. And it does it in a variety of different ways. And the more that we can become aware and notice for ourselves allows us to be then more cognizant in how we might interface with other people, work with other people, communicate with other people. And as we model effective ways in communicating our feelings and emotions, like Jacqueline, you're like, I communicated what I was feeling. Other people may have reacted to it slightly different, but you were modeling what it looked like to be honest and true with what it was in the moment.
Yeah,
And that,
and it also gets back down to choosing your feelings as well. Like, you know, it goes back to the risk, trust, honesty. Like, how much can I risk here? What's acceptable, unacceptable to either move this conversation forward or move myself forward? And how sometimes when other people are giving me outside information and my confidence and self-confidence is not kind of in balance, how I might internalize that and then start communicating with myself.
Mhm. Yeah, and that kind of leads us into the question about like, well, how do you emotionally regulate when you're starting to feel those peaks and those valleys, and not necessarily directly at you, Jacqueline, but for the group, for
I
everyone
have a
else.
confession though. I have peaks and valleys. And when I'm in the peaks, I don't want to emotionally regulate. When I'm in the valleys, boy, do I ever want to emotionally regulate.
I mean, I think that's fair, right? The dopamine hit of being at a peak, like let's just amp up the volume and keep on.
Like,
But the
let's
reality,
do it. Yay.
the reality of life is there is multi-sensory experiences. There's going to be things that we experience that we may not want to, don't like to, want to pretend we're not experiencing and like hide and distract from. And there's going to be other things, Jacqueline, like you mentioned, they're just like, just give me a all. I'm just going to stay in this blissful state forever, and it's amazing. And nobody talk to me because I don't want it to end. Right?
Well, the thing that I love is that you've identified this.
Mhm.
You're aware of those peaks and valleys for yourself. And so in those moments, you can choose how you want to engage. And one of the things, and I think Becky and I have spoke to this before on the BDE, but when we're both emotionally in a ineffective place, let's say, when we're both having a rough day, we do tread, we're aware of it. And one of the things that we've learned is to tread lightly with each other. When we're both in that space of it's an emotional hard day, things are not going well, and or as well as we would like, we tread lightly with each other, because historically, when we have attempted to work with each other and engage, it has not gone well. We usually tend to feed off each other's emotions. And even though we have these skills, and that's the other thing here is, even with skills, even with the opportunity with my models to ask, is this effective? Is this ineffective? What's coming up for you? And all of these great tools, they can help. But one of the things here is they're not always, it's a time and place thing. They, even the skill sets are not necessarily always effective in the given situation, or with the other that you're working with. Sometimes asking Becky the questions when she is not in an effective headspace does not work. It actually upsets her and sends her the other way.
So in that case, he's got to cycle through a couple different things to find something that's effective. Okay. Because again, the communication and the understanding of today's a great example. I'll just be fully transparent. Like, I was having a bit of a rough one today. And so my tone was a little bit sharp, and there's a whole bunch of things that need to be done. And so I was like lining up out like dominoes, this, and then asking the question, hey, Tim, where are you at with this, and this? And he felt like I was attacking him. Not my intention. It was not about Tim at all. Nothing about this guy. It was about the situation and others that needed to be lined out. And so I had to communicate with Tim. I apologize for my tone. My tone is not directed at you. I acknowledge that I'm not being super effective in my communication in that space. This specifically is how I'm feeling and what is going on for me. Did it make the things magically go away? No, it didn't. But it allowed for alignment between these two. So he's just like, okay, this is how I need to engage maybe differently. And I was aware that how I had been engaging was not effective for Tim in that duality. So when we talk about our emotions, okay, and our communication, do they affect our communication? I know for me it does. What about Brent? You've been kind of quiet. Are you able to audio speak? I know you're not on camera.
Yeah. I was getting ready to wait till the end there to hop off here, but hop off here quick so I can get to sleep. But yeah, so I would say my emotions definitely affect the way I communicate. In the same situation like you explained, my reaction to communicate with somebody else like you, it's me. Like if I'm going through something or if I'm in a hurry, pressure, stress, it will come across as if I'm being, aggressive with that person or harsh. If there's a question or like an interruption, it may seem like it's come across like it's a burden, like they're interrupting me, they're in my way, like that will happen. So so it'll definitely do that. Yeah, it's just being aware of that and go, okay, this is not what I'm wanting to communicate. I don't want come across as it's not them, it's me. Like I am the one who's going through these things. It's not them. They're in their own world, their separate perspective, and they're just coming into me, coming to me, ask a question or wanting something, and so that they're not intentionally, that isn't their intention to cause my reaction or how I'm responding. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Brent.
Cool.
All right, you guys, we I think are about, unfortunately, at the point of needing to transition into wrap up in just a few minutes. Does anybody have anything else right now based on what we've been chatting about? Questions or comments before we transition into wrap up?
Did you have anything, Patty, that you wanted to add?
Not right here.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Jacqueline is
Okay, no wrap up. Okay, that's just fine, Jacqueline. We appreciate you being on here and we appreciate you engaging and sharing tonight.
Mhm.
It's been extremely effective. We always appreciate you being on and sharing your perspectives.
And before Tim goes into that, just a couple things maybe for you guys to take away. Homework, self-journaling, pondering as it relates to emotions and communication. Curious, along the lines of Leslie's questions for himself earlier,
Yep.
do you find that you have a process to externalize your feelings and emotions? If so, where? And what's effective about that for you? And the second one is, what is effective about your communication, whether that's with yourself, with others? Start considering, or maybe take some time to identify for yourself where you excel at communication, where you feel that that's moving pretty fluidly for you, or maybe some opportunity places that you want to take a look at. But more than that, what's effective about what you're doing so you can build upon that?
Can you repeat the second question, Jackie? Or sorry, Becky.
What is effective about your communication?
Okay, thank you.
Because again, we all are here on this call. We have all made it to a certain area and level in life at communicating effectively. So there are things that we do well. And it's important that we identify what those things are. And then as Blair likes to offer, our 3-2-1 evaluation, 3 things that are working well, 2 things that you might want to find an opportunity to improve on, and 1 thing to test.
Yep.
And with that, turn it to you.
And as we go through the wrap up here, just want to encourage those of you that are out there on YouTube or maybe watching the recording of this later. When we go through the wrap up, it's what worked for you tonight? What was your big aha moment? And what is your biggest takeaway? Is kind of what we talk about when the wrap up, and then your experience of tonight's episode, not of any one of us individuals, but just your experience being here and watching the BDE on YouTube. on a scale of 1 to 10. So just to kind of give you that little bit of context on what we do here with the wrap up. If you're out there on YouTube, we love it in the comments. Love to hear what you took away, and also encourage you to answer those questions that Becky just posed. So with that, Brent, do you want to start off the wrap up? I know you mentioned.
Yeah. I was gonna say if I can go first, so I can hop off here and go back to go to sleep, so I can get up early.
Yeah, please do.
Yes. So it was a great reminder tonight of being aware of your emotions, describing your feelings, naming and labeling, and to be aware of them and notice them and how they affect you and affect others in communication. So how that impacts and impacts you as well as those around you. And a great point as to where you're learning these things, where we learn that communication skills. So how, and then using that to, again, be aware of how you're communicating. So how that's going to affect those around you, impact you. So if you know, to be effective communicators, to practice that, to reflect that. So that way, if you're wanting to have effective communication, that is modeled. Yeah, you're modeling that behavior. You're doing that behavior. So, yeah. Let's say I give it an 8 for me tonight. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Brent. Appreciate you, and good luck.
Thank you.
Leslie, would you like to participate in the wrap up?
Yes, thank you. I enjoyed this evening quite a bit. Realizing from the discussion, as I had mentioned about these 3 questions for myself, having a way to release emotions. And how do I do this, and where is my place to do this? It's I've got some homework. Just everything wrapping around tonight and coming to this point is amazing. Thank you. 9.5 for me tonight. And there's just a lot of realizations going on right now about communicating. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Leslie. Appreciate you. Shannon, would you like to participate?
Yes, thank you. This is really interesting because it's a little bit different processing when you're going back to what Becky was saying. Do we think our emotions or feel our emotions? And the first probably 90% of my experience with the mind models was all thinky. It was very in through that part of my mind, and it's only been in the last year or so that I've been practicing the mind models in a new way and being able. We didn't talk a lot about judgment today, but one of the biggest obstacles to my feelings and allowing myself to feel them is judging myself for having them in the first place. And so there's so much, back to the beginning, Mom, what you were saying, about people's responses to you. And that was something that was so deeply ingrained into me that, over many years in many different situations, from the competitive sports arena to different things, there was a lot of don't have it. If it exists, keep it on the inside, and you've got your performance face, and, do the things, you're not dead, keep going. And so it was, and then there would be the periodic, off gassing, shall we say. And then I'd be like, okay, I'm fine. But it was like something would have to happen. I could feel the pressure building, but I wasn't aware of it. And then I would need an outside source to let the pressure off. And then I'd feel better. And it was this, cycle, and finding freedom in the fact that it's okay to have feelings. There's nothing wrong about having them. It doesn't mean I failed at all. Like even just like my thinking and my language around emotions has dramatically changed. The vocabulary is still not the first thing that I can access. For me, the first gateway in is noticing it in my body. And that is the place that I have to start. I've been trying periodically to start with, you know, the words describing the feelings. And I don't, if I start by trying to start with feeling words, that's harder for me. So if I say, where am I feeling this? That gets me going more. So in terms of building on that process, a Nanpu and noticing in my body is the start of that process. The other fun win that I had while we were chatting, I used to feel really self-conscious about my need to verbally process. There were a lot of unfriendly feedbacks about my use of words, and I love words. I love to talk and share words. And, you know, people are mean sometimes. And it doesn't tamp down the fact that that's just a part of me. And I think as we're talking about this, that verbally processing is actually one of the ways I externalize my feelings. Like, I think that's more connected to my feeling process than I thought it was. For me, I thought that that was more of a cognitive process, and shifting that to more of an your face now. But shifting that to more of an emotional process was like, that was my aha moment for the day. And I know my mom's probably like, really? We just now discovered this, but it was, that's one of my moments from tonight as I was pondering Leslie's questions is, how do I do this? And I think, you know, that was one of the things that I think I did. I just didn't have a label for it, or it was in a different slot of my brain. The pondering questions at the end were really valuable, and I appreciated going through. It's still very muddy for me to figure out how to help my nephews with their emotions. And so I appreciated going through that immensely, because it is not just what are they feeling, because I have to manage myself in the middle of that in order to be effective for them. So like, it's a lot to do in the present moment. And sometimes I feel like I miss the moment. Like I miss the timeliness of helping them because I'm still so clumsy in my own mind of figuring out what it is to do. And today's emotional situation might be different than tomorrow's emotional situation, you know, as it is with all of us, no matter how old we are. So those are some things I appreciate continuing being able to talk about here, because I want to continue to improve and to bring those skills into their lives. And I'm aware that what they see me do, you know, impacts them as well. And so it places some importance on my walking what I talk, and how do I do that? And how do I let them in on that internal process? If there's something going on inside my own head, you know, when and how do I share that with them so they can learn from that too? So 8 for me tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Shannon, you sharing and your insights tonight. Becky.
Yeah. 8.2 for me tonight. Communication is a big one for me. I think you guys hear me say that a lot. There's a lot of things that are big for me. I love communication though. I feel very connected to the power behind being able to connect with another human being verbally. Like, I very much like Shannon have a love for words. Okay. And Patty, dictionary definitions. I was the nerdy kid in school that read the dictionary because it was really cool to understand what all the words meant. And I have been on a journey of discovery of how to communicate my feelings and emotions, because I can get very easily sucked into the trap of get things done and being very process driven and being very info heavy, because that is a safe space and I typically do it well and I'm very effective at it, versus stepping enter into Becky's world and what's actually going on under the hood, and actually honoring what those things are so that I can actually connect on a deeper level with another human being. Because connection is born out of experience and being able to balance with another person. So show and feel and access emotion when appropriate for another human being to feel seen and heard by me, and to also receive that on the other side instead of just being a vessel of information. And we there's a lot that we didn't get to today as far as what it means to really harness the power that is behind describing feelings, their impact on our behavior and communication. But really, describing your feelings and naming and labeling have been some of the most powerful mind models for me in understanding myself at a deeper level, being able to teach my kids at a deeper level, being able to communicate more effectively with a spouse because life is full of ups and downs and all the things. And we are not carbon copies of another human being. Our thumbprints and fingerprints are different, just as our emotional states and the ebb and flow of emotions are different. And so it can seem a little, tricky, but the more that we start to understand ourselves, that just it relieves that level of tension so that we can then interface or interact with other people at a different level. So that's for me tonight.
Thank you for sharing. Patty, do you like
Yeah.
to?
Sure. I'm thinking about, Leslie pondering the where and the when, for the emotional expression. And, when I was raised, I was taught a lot about what to behave. I wasn't taught much about identifying feelings. Feelings were, to a large degree, somewhat irrelevant in the world I grew up in. And so learning what is appropriate to time and place in terms of that expression, I became or choice, Jackie, yeah. I became very skilled at that functional dissociation, largely because there are times when emotions are too great and overwhelming to continue to function. And if I need to function in the moment, then I need to park them. But the trick there is coming back and saying, okay, what just happened here? Now that I've got a grip and everything is nailed down, it's like, okay, what take off the parking brake? Yeah. What just happened here for me? And what was going on? And how am I doing with that? Those kinds of practices are relatively new in my life, but I think that they are highly, highly effective, not just from the point of view of self-acceptance, but also in the point of view of accepting other people, that it's okay for them to have their feelings, doesn't take away or add much of anything to my life. It's okay for me to have my feelings and for people to not agree with them, see them, understand them. It's more important that I accept myself and what I'm feeling, and that I accept that others have a different way of looking at the world, and that that's okay too. So I think that we didn't touch on it much, but just acknowledging what is in the moment, and acceptance. Colin's acceptance process. Yeah.
I'm actually going to put chat so that those here
put that in the chat. Yeah. Colin's acceptance process is really interesting. If anybody wants to copy paste that out, that's quite detailed and has been proven to be highly effective. It is his unique process, but there are different studies in the world that validate a lot of the steps of this process. So, but anyway, for me, it was an 8.5 tonight. It's a topic that I don't know if we can do this topic too much because we are such emotional beings, and that continuous awareness notice of what's going on and how's it impacting me, how's it impacting other people, how's it impacting the situation I'm dealing with. We need those awarenesses to be able to make the most effective life choices we can. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Patty. For For me, it's a 9 tonight. I think my biggest takeaway tonight, I actually appreciated the question that Becky asked earlier, the question of 1 to 10 and how, easy communication or not easy communication is for you. I've had an interesting relationship, I guess you can say, with my communication over the years. For the longest time, I felt like, and here's your story, feel like I wasn't communicating well. And that there was some sort of a disconnect between my head and my mouth and the things that I was thinking, things that I was feeling. I was not able to express them well. And so that would just heighten the emotion and it would amp up. And there was almost like this Hulk inside that would want to just go, never mind and screw it and just, and so I had a very ineffective relationship with my communication because the words just, struggle to come. At least this was my belief. And it would just heighten the emotions and things. And so I guess you could say, a few years ago, when you asked the question, was it difficult for me to communicate? Yeah. I mean, I felt as if I struggled to really communicate. As I've learned the mind models, as I've been able to evaluate, as I've been able to name and label, and also take a good look at the name and label that I had put on myself, that I wasn't an effective communicator and that I was somehow stupid or, these labels that I placed on myself, I didn't realize how much they were affecting me and my ability to become a more effective communicator. One of the things that was brought up in the beginning of this is that we can change. We can change the way we communicate. We can become aware of how to express and our emotions and how to communicate effectively. A lot of us just were not taught when we were young. We just kind of reacted. And so as I learned the mind models, as I took a look at these names and labels and went, okay, this doesn't apply anymore, or maybe this one does, or maybe that one does, and really evaluate those, and then update. I was able to update myself and take a look at my communication and then work on becoming more of an effective communicator. And that was a lot of what I worked on with my girls. Was I got, the interesting thing, and I love that you brought it up, Shannon, working with them and asking them the questions and communicating with what they were feeling and those kinds of things. It wasn't just helping them communicate more effectively. It really did a lot for me. Being able to park my emotions and, because my daughter's losing it and we're in the middle of a store and, and all the emotions and things that come up um, for me to be able to park those and to ask her questions, it was a really a big opportunity for me to work on my communication and my emotions and things that came up as well. So it really was a give and take. And I probably learned more from them than they ever did from me. I've shared that with Becky many, many times. And so, um, but really, when I brought in the evaluation, when I brought in the naming and labeling, when I really started taking a good look under the hood, so to speak, I've noticed that I've become a more effective communicator. That those names and labels that once were there, I'm able to put in the past and move forward. And it really has changed my life. And so, to Patty's point, I don't think we can talk enough about, emotions, how they affect us, communication. It really can change your life, and it really is very important. And it's a fun topic to explore as well, and not one that is explored near enough. So, yeah, tonight's conversation was great, and appreciate everybody and everybody's participation. And with that, I'm going to turn the time over to my lovely wife to wrap us up.
I was
All
going to
right.
say, I'm going to interrupt for just a quick minute. Leslie, we're going to continue doing more facets of emotions and communication with different applications. So this is the beginning of a series on communication. So it's not necessarily a part 2 as much as it's an extended conversation. Does that answer
Wonderful.
your
Thank you.
question?
Thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right. All right, you guys, thanks again for hanging out with us for the last 90 minutes again and weathering through the little technological snafu. Great talking point as far as like, what do we do when we're hit with all these oh no feelings, okay? And still need to communicate and get things done. All right, you guys, as we mentioned, tonight was a lot, but we didn't cover everything that we prepped. So boundaries, um, uh, there is a whole bunch more that we had prepped for our conversation tonight. But again, we go where the conversation goes for the participants that are here. So it can be experiential, explore questions and things like that. So Blair has put an opportunity together for you to get his insider notes, episode 318 and everything current. So again, we're on episode 371. That's a lot of in-depth training and knowledge. He's also including those videos. So if you enjoyed the video that we saw at the beginning, that kind of gave the overview of emotions and communication. That is also going to be a bonus inside of the insider notes per episode. So definitely recommend that you get your hands on that. The investment is $25 a month, $300 a year. Highly, highly recommend because again, we can understand and we can read books and we can read things and shelf improvement is nice for the information side of things, but it is not a replacement for learning skills that can literally shape and shift your life. That's what mind models do. You can utilize 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, a 12 pack or more, or pick your favorite couple and they will, as you practice them, it'll help you become more effective. And so understanding how they work is a great opportunity for you to dive a little deeper than we can get on the BDE within the insider notes. And if you want to go even deeper, I don't think that anybody on this call could recommend coach training enough. It's a highly immersive experience in understanding how to become more effective, not just what to think, but how to think. And it ripples and touches every aspect of your life. So whether you're like, I want to be more effective in business, great. Mark your calendar for January 5th through 8th and the 13th through 16th. If you're like, I want to be more effective in my home life, raising my kids, fantastic. Book your calendar. January 5th through 8th and the 13th through 16th, Mind Model Method Coach training in person in Arizona. Online events are fantastic and you can get a lot out of them, but being in the room on location while learning these and being able to have conversations in between the breaks and things, there is no substitute for live events. So
And also remembering just a real quick piece to that, these mind models are behavioral skill sets.
Mhm.
And so being able to be in person and actually be able to behave them and to practice them, there's nothing compares. You can't really do that via Zoom. It's a bit more difficult. So it really is a neat experience to be in person.
Yeah. And again, like the training that you get from Mind Model Method Coach training, whether it's in person or Zoom, is radically different than anything that you can get anywhere else. And to Tim's point, being able to be in a room full of people who are like-minded and wanting to become more effective and seeing how other people experience it and being touched by that, that is a learning modality and a learning style that again is unique and extremely powerful. So again, if you're interested, you can shoot Blair an email at blair@rewiringthemind.com and then he'll be able to give you more details on that. But for right now, go ahead and just save the date, January 5th through 8th, 13th through 16th. And just to mention again, Blair has got 2 books on Amazon, Ultimate Mind Hacking and Phobia Freedom Formula, each one a unique insight into mind models and how they work. Definitely recommend that you get your hands on those and join us next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern. We're here every single Tuesday, except for the ones we take off for holidays. And we're here as a group to learn and grow and see how mind models can help us become more effective in our own worlds. With that, have a wonderful rest of your day.
We will be here though. We will be here the week of Thanksgiving. So we're not taking that one off for holiday. We will take off for holiday for Christmas and New Year's, but this one, we will be here the week of Thanksgiving.
Yes, and thank you for that, Patty. We will let you know specifically, likely next week, the dates that we will not be in session, but other than that, we will be here. So have a wonderful day or night wherever you're tuning in from, and we'll talk to you next week. We'll see.